What's going on, y'all? It's Drew. We're back with another NBA video, and today we are going to be doing the Western Conference half of the last 20 game goals for every single team. We did the East last week. Go check that out if you haven't seen it already. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by around June. Every like, every sub, it really means a lot. So let's just get into this one. So starting off the Western Conference, oh, Jesus fucking Christ. I can't believe we have to begin with this team. For the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah, the Nico Harrison team. They're cooked. They're pretty banged up right now in terms of big men. They have, I think they just signed Moses Brown off the street, so they have like one center on the roster. But I don't think they're making the playoffs. I think they have to try to win enough to stay, afloat. I think they've got a chance to make the play-in. I think they probably will get like the 9 or 10 seed. But honestly, this team is cooked beyond belief, and they're just going to have to reload and retool next year. Hopefully keep Kyrie, get the 14th pick in the draft, and then see what you can do. Add a little bit more talent, because I guess in theory this team could be awesome next year, but just I'm still pissed. For the Denver Nuggets, lock up a high seed and keep Jamal Murray healthy heading into the playoffs. The Nuggets are in a weird position right now where they sort of have to figure out which guys rotationally are actually playoff-ready players. Obviously Calvin Booth has made such a big deal about Mike Malone playing the young guys that they have like no vets really, so we're going to have to see whether or not like a Jalen Pickett, potentially a Zeke Naji, Peyton Watsons of the world, these guys, if they can maybe contribute as like the 7th, 8th men in the rotation, because otherwise I think this starting lineup is going to be way too taxed, and just the more home court that this team can get, the higher seed, the better, because obviously home court in Denver is huge. For the Golden State Warriors, they got to get out of the play-in. This team has been rolling since they got Jimmy Butler. I know they did just lose to Philadelphia the other night, but that seemed like a complete black swan event. Quentin Grimes dropped like 100 points. So get out of the play-in, and then they got to figure out the Jonathan Kuminga thing. Kuminga's been out with a sprained ankle for a while now, and I'm not really sure how he's going to fit in with Jimmy once he's healthy. I think this is going to be the year where we start to talk about them having to make a decision. I don't think the Giannis trade is coming this offseason. I think if that is something that is going to be floated out, it won't be until the following year. But I do think this is the time for the Warriors to make a trade. It's a shame that those two things aren't lining up, because honestly, I really do think the Warriors should be moving their young guys this offseason, putting in all the chips around Steph one last time. For the Houston Rockets, they got to use Amen Thompson as a playmaker more. Give him some more minutes at the 1. Use him as the lead ball handler in more lineups. And then we've got to see a Jalen Green trial by fire now coming into the playoffs, because now that this team is good enough to maybe win a series, we've got to actually determine whether or not Jalen Green is like a winning player, if he's the sort of guy that's going to get schemed out in a playoff rotation. And we got to see if he can rise in this last bit of the season, because he sort of is a bizarre case, and I'm not really sure if the team is going to be keeping him in the long term. So I think that's something they should be looking at right now. For a lot of these middling playoff Western Conference teams, it's really just the same shit, just like the higher seeding the better, and just sort of like figuring out small things with their rotations. The Lakers, determine a timeline with Luka and then figure out how significant this playoff is going to be. The Lakers are currently in the 2 seed as of today, and they could be a team that could honestly make a case for the Western Conference Finals. They could make a run that far in the playoffs this year. I'm not really sure if we're looking at this team as one that's just okay with getting bounced in the first round now. Even though they did make this massive addition, we were really expecting them to take the rest of the year off to get Luka acclimated and just figure out how good they were. But since they're already very good now, I think this is a team that could be conference finals bound potentially. So I guess they've got to figure out their center position, and they're going to have to figure out how to scheme a consistent defense. Obviously, their defense has been amazing lately, but this is a very weird transitional period for them, so I want to see them maintain a top 15 defense, even higher than that for the rest of the year, hopefully. For the Los Angeles Clippers, again, just another middling Western Conference team, so I don't really have anything remarkable to say about them, but ramp up Kawhi and try to get home courts. That's really about it. For the Grizzlies, get Ja more involved in the offense. I still think that this is his team. I think the people who talk shit about Ja Morant these days, as though he isn't their best player, isn't their best point guard even, are ridiculous. This is a team that also needs to make a push for higher seeding, and I think they need to shorten up the rotation. They've got a lot of guys. They sort of need to make a call between G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams. Which one of those guys is going to be in the rotation during the playoffs? I would be inclined to give Vince Williams some minutes, so that's something they've got to figure out. Minnesota, Jesus Christ, Minnesota has so many question marks. This team is so weird. We got to figure out what Mike Conley's health status is. They don't really have an elite lead playmaker right now. Mike Conley is pretty decrepit at this point. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is good, but he's got serious limitations as an offensive player. And you got to try and figure out a way to reduce Julius Randle's offensive involvement going into the playoffs, because he is just going to stink up the joint. And this is not a team that I'm anticipating winning a round in the playoffs, but if they're going to end up in the play-in, then they're going to have to scrape and claw to maintain a 7th seed. So I would say just try and, make Julius Randle as insignificant as possible and make a plan to do so heading into the playoffs. For the Pelicans, just a team railed by injuries all year, so keep Zion's conditioning up, don't burn him out before the end of the year, and just have some fun. Try to get to 20-plus wins. They've been winning actually a lot lately for a team that only has 15 wins on the season. They're on a 4 or 5 game win streak right now or something like that. And draft for talent. I kind of like a VJ Edgecombe for them. Dylan Harper would be good for them. I think depending on where they land in the draft, CJ McCollum is going to be a big trade candidate for the offseason. So I think they should just get the best player available once the draft rolls around. For the Oklahoma City Thunder, these last 20 games don't really matter that much. They still, I guess, for some reason have to prove themselves to the rest of the NBA that they're scary. Just go win the NBA Finals. Make sure Chet's ready for full-time 5 minutes. Make sure he's ready to play the center all the time. For the Phoenix Suns, this ship has sailed. This team is done. It's over. Just get ready for the Kevin Durant trade. There are now reports out that they are actively working on that with him, so I think we can see the writing on the wall. This team is a sinking ship. For the Portland Trail Blazers, another pretty unlikely team to sort of move around in the standings very much. They're pretty much slotted in right as the 10th worst team in the NBA right now. They can't really fall into the bottom 3 of the West, but they're not really going to be in the play-in mix. They're sort of right in that in-between area. So I guess just keep doing what you're doing. They've got a nice mixture of vets and young guys. There's merit to playing both of those groups of players for them for the rest of the year, both so you can groom their vets for trades. Well, pause. And then obviously their young guys need some run. Might be a good time to start Scoot Henderson, actually. That would be something I'd be really looking at. And in terms of a player in the draft, I like VJ Edgecombe for them. If they could just get a versatile defensive wing, maybe another Denny Avdia type character with maybe a better 3-point shot, I think that'd be really helpful for them. For the Sacramento Kings, I genuinely have no idea what this team should be thinking right now. This team is so confusing to me. I don't really feel strongly about them making any drastic offseason overhaul. They're kind of stuck in the play-in mix. If you want to trade Domantas Sabonis and then start to tear this thing down to the studs next year, Sabonis is going to be a really tricky player to trade just because of his skill set and sort of what makes him good. But again, I'm just not really sure. I guess they should just keep winning at the rate they are. I don't really have anything else to say. They don't have a ton of young guys that they should be giving a ton of minutes to, but they don't have a super competitive team either, so I guess they just stay in the middle and then reassess during the offseason. For the San Antonio Spurs, the playoffs are no longer in the cards for this team. They are way too far behind. They are not getting into the playoffs. So just try to be competitive to save face. I wouldn't really worry about playing a Malachi Branham or a Blake Wesley extended minutes at this point in the season. I think the writing is sort of on the wall that a lot of those young guys at the end of their bench are just kind of gone. So just keep doing what you're doing. And then finally, for the Utah Jazz, keep losing. They're doing a great job at tanking vaguely ethically, I guess. Sag for flag. pick the best available player, and then you can just figure out the roster construction in the off season. This team has a bunch of interesting pieces. I'm not really sure anyone in Utah is a permanent fixture of the team, but they've got a lot of directions they can go in once they get some talent in this year's draft. It's going to do it for me in this one, though. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. I know this one was a little bit less directional. I just don't think there's a lot else to say. A lot of these teams in the West are sort of jockeying for the same position. They've got little circumstantial things that sort of differentiate them, but honestly, for the most part, most of that stuff is going to have to get cleared up in the offseason, or these teams are just going to be like continuous. Next year, they're all going to sort of look relatively similar. And, you know, the West is fucking trial by fire for every team. But if you guys like this video, like and subscribe. We've got the Twitch, we've got the Discord down below. The night I post this, I might be going live on Twitch. You can follow if you're curious. You can hop into the Discord if you want to get notified about that sort of thing. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Cue that music.